November 29th, 2023. Henry Kissinger is dead, and the most powerful people on the planet are falling over each other to say goodbye. Statesman, genius, giant of foreign policy. The tributes are endless. But while the world is mourning, something is happening on the other side of the planet. In Cambodia, where his secret bombs are still killing farmers today. In Chile, where families of the disappeared are still waiting for justice. In Bangladesh, East Timor, Angola, people are not mourning. They are opening bottles, because the man the world is calling a genius is the man their grandparents called a butcher. Here is the question every obituary refused to ask. If Kissinger had been born in a country that lost, instead of a country that won, would the world be calling him a statesman? Or would he be in a courtroom? This is Who Was He? Episode 4. Stay uncomfortable. Henry Kissinger was born in Germany in 1923. Jewish family, small town, quiet life, until the Nazis arrived. At 15, he watched his world collapse around him. Friends disappeared. Neighbors turned on neighbors. The country he grew up in decided his people didn't deserve to exist. His family fled to America with nothing. And here is where the story gets uncomfortable. Most people who survive that kind of darkness come out of it with empathy, with an understanding of what it feels like to be the powerless one, the disposable one, the one the world decides doesn't matter. Kissinger came out of it with something different, a conclusion. He looked at what happened to his people and decided that morality in the real world was a luxury, that the only thing that actually protected anyone was power. Raw, calculated, unapologetic power. He took that conclusion to Harvard, built a career around it, and eventually carried it all the way to the White House. The refugee who fled persecution became the architect of policies that persecuted millions. That is not irony. That is a warning. Stay uncomfortable. In 1969, Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger did something that should have ended both of their careers. They secretly bombed a country that was not at war with America. Cambodia had declared itself neutral. It wanted nothing to do with Vietnam, nothing to do with America, nothing to do with the Cold War being fought on its doorstep. Kissinger didn't care. He saw Cambodia as a supply route for North Vietnamese forces, and he convinced Nixon that the solution was simple. Bomb it, secretly, without telling Congress, without telling the American people, without telling the world. The operation was given a name that tells you everything about how these men thought. They called it Operation Menu. The targets were given names like breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert. They gave a mass killing campaign, the names of mealtimes. Between 1969 and 1973, American B-52 bombers dropped more explosives on Cambodia than were dropped on Japan during the entire Second World War. Let that land for a second. More bombs than the entirety of World War II in the Pacific. Over 100,000 Cambodian civilians died. And here is the part that should make your blood run cold. Those bombs didn't just kill people. They destabilized an entire country. They created a power vacuum so severe that it allowed a radical group called the Khmer Rouge to rise to power. The Khmer Rouge went on to kill 2 million people. a quarter of Cambodia's entire population. Kissinger's secret bombing campaign didn't just kill 100,000 people directly. It set off a chain of events that killed millions more. And in 1973, while Cambodia was still burning, Henry Kissinger was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The committee member who gave it to him resigned in protest. Kissinger kept the prize. Stay uncomfortable. September 11th, 1973. Not New York, not the Twin Towers, Santiago, Chile, and the building on fire is the presidential palace. Inside that burning building is Salvador Allende, the democratically elected president of Chile, a man whose only crime, in the eyes of Washington, was that he was a socialist who wanted Chilean copper to belong to Chilean people. He dies in that palace. And the man who helped put those flames there was sitting comfortably in Washington, D.C. His name was Henry Kissinger. 2 years before that fire, Kissinger had said privately in a secretly recorded meeting, "I don't see why we need to stand by and watch a country go communist due to the irresponsibility of its own people." He called democracy irresponsibility. So they destroyed it. The CIA flooded Chile with money, destabilized the economy, funded opposition, created chaos. And when the conditions were right, gave the green light to General Pinochet. Thousands of Chileans were rounded up, tortured, disappeared. Families spent decades not knowing if their loved ones were alive or dead. America knew. America watched. America approved. But Chile was just the beginning. 1971 Bangladesh. A genocide unfolding. Pakistani forces massacring hundreds of thousands of civilians. American diplomats on the ground sending cables back to Washington using the word genocide, begging for intervention. Kissinger called them emotional and kept sending military supplies to Pakistan because Pakistan was useful, because Bengali lives were just variables in his equation. Then East Timor, 1975. Kissinger and President Ford met Indonesian President Suharto the day before Indonesia invaded East Timor. The invasion was discussed across the table. They gave their blessing, flew home. The next morning, the bombs started falling. Over 100,000 people died. 3 countries, 3 continents, 3 massacres, 1 man's fingerprints on all of them. And here is what makes this truly chilling. None of this is conspiracy. All of it is declassified. All of it is on the public record. The CIA documents, the Bangladesh cables, the East Timor meeting. The evidence was always there. The world just decided not to care. Stay uncomfortable. November 29th. 2023. We are back where we started. Henry Kissinger is dead at 100, and the tributes are still rolling in. But now, you know what those tributes are actually celebrating. They are celebrating the man who secretly bombed Cambodia and called the targets breakfast and lunch. The man who helped burn down a democratically elected government in Chile because he didn't like how the people voted. The man who watched a genocide unfold in Bangladesh and called the diplomats who reported it emotional. The man who sat across a table from an Indonesian dictator, gave him the green light to invade a tiny island, flew home, and went to sleep while the bombs were falling. That is the man they are calling a statesman. That is the man they are calling a genius. And here is the most uncomfortable truth of this entire story. He was never charged, never tried, never spent a single night in a cell, never had to look a single victim in the eye and explain himself. He died in his home in Connecticut, surrounded by comfort, by wealth, by the respect of the most powerful people on earth. Over 3 million people died in the countries where his decisions landed. He lived to 100. That gap between 3 million dead and 1 man dying peacefully in his bed is not an accident. It is not a failure of the system. It is the system working exactly as it was designed. Because the system was never built to hold men like Kissinger accountable. It was built to protect them, to reward them, to write their names into history books as visionaries while burying the names of everyone they destroyed. You have seen this before on this channel. Leopold died celebrated. Rhodes died celebrated. The architects of the Iraq War retired to ranches and book deals. And now Kissinger joins that list of men who shaped the world through violence and left without a single consequence. The names change. The decades change. The impunity never does. So the next time a world leader is called a statesman, ask yourself what that word is covering up. Because history has shown us that the bigger the title, the darker the shadow behind it. Stay uncomfortable.